Let's go, mofo. How you living? Saturday night. I just got in from work a little while ago. We're into the midnight hour, people. It's late. And we're here for our secret teachings of Jesus coming from the Nag Hammadi scriptures. And these are the Gnostic Gospels. And I just was really curious about reading them and wanted to explore. And I just didn't have a lot of time to fit that into my life. And so I thought I'd make it a weekly segment that we could do together. And so basically, I will read a portion, and it's pretty much the first time I've ever read it. I usually skim through and pick one out that jumps out at me, and then we'll read it together. I'll read it out loud very poorly, and then I'll go back and unpack it line for line with the impressions that I'm channeling through in the moment. And I am not a theologian or anything. I just have a lot of gall and we're just having fun. So, do with this what you will. This is entertainment. Also, I wanted to mention that midnight is a very powerful time of day. It is a liminal space between the beginning of one thing and the end of one thing and the beginning of the next. And so the veil is very thin. And so during this time of night, the sages, the Hebrew mystic sages will study, because they are covered by a surrounding light, which is a protective influence that acts as like a filter that sort of lessens the impact of the intensity of the pure light of the Creator coming in as wisdom when we study these deep secrets. And then instead of having to go through like the protection is, instead of having to go through maybe a chaotic process to embody the information or to gain the wisdom, instead it's insight happens and you're kind of protected from that added chaos, because there's so much energy that comes through when you have enlightenment and when you study and when you have these downloads, that it has to be grounded. It has to go through a process to be embodied. And usually that process involves facing challenges and overcoming and persisting and finding your footing within unfamiliar territory, right? It's the learning process, learning through doing. So when you study these things, around midnight, it's a very positive window in time, so it helps you kind of avoid some of the chaos that might come along. I'm trying to think anything else that I wanted to mention just as far as those basic notes for when we start, but I think that is it. So, yeah, it was a good night at the restaurant tonight. We were really busy, but it wasn't insane. Somehow we were kind of harmonious and peaceful and even flow for the whole evening. So nothing insane happened tonight. No crazy stories, nothing super embarrassing, no bad fuck ups. So yay, just under the radar, kind of low key kind of night. It's just the way I like it. High value. All right, so now that we've caught up, we've shot the shit, now let's get down to business. Let's get down to brass taxes. All right, this portion is coming from the Gospel of Philip. I have a Secret Teachings of Jesus playlist you can go check out. Earlier in the year, we had been covering the Gospel or the Book of James. Now, for the last couple of months, we've been on the Gospel of Philip. And the Book of James was more character building and dialogues between Jesus and the disciples. But the Gospel of Philip has really been these little paragraphs and portions that are kind of these cryptic messages that are meant to be meditated on and thought over and pontificated, if you will. So, gives you a little bit of context, and yeah, here we go. This portion is called Jesus Tricked Everyone. I think that's funny. I love that it's called this because, I I just think it's going to be very controversial and like to people, or provocative, I would say, because I can hear a Southern woman going, Jesus never tricked anybody. Jesus wasn't a liar. But so I love that already we're starting off with some provocative stuff here. Jesus tricked everyone, sorry. Jesus tricked everyone, for he did not appear as he was, but he appeared so that he could be seen. He appeared to everyone. He appeared to the great as great. He appeared to the small as small. He appeared to the angels as an angel, and to humans as a human. For this reason, his word was hidden from everyone. Some looked at him and thought they saw themselves. But when he appeared to his disciples in glory upon the mountain, he was not small. He became great. Or rather, he made the disciples great, so they could see him in his greatness. So I think that this portion is really making reference to affinity of form. We talk about this concept in Kabbalah, that we want to have affinity of form with the light. Meaning, if we have affinity with the light, then we are like the light and we are compatible with that, the energy of the light, and we can receive the light without dissonance. Like attracts like. It's like vibration, the law of attraction there. So I've heard it said before that angels, if they appear to you, they will appear to you in the way that you need them to for you to understand them. But like, generally speaking, angels are just these very specific energy personalities. I think that they're energy without form, that are conscious, but they have a very specific purpose that they serve. And so they don't have the full spectrum of personality with an ego like we do. It's like they're sort of like almost like a one track, or whatever their assignments are. Like, that's what they are. They're an energy. They're not a person. They're not a fully fleshed out like personality. They're governing forces. And so angels appear to us the way that we can perceive them, so that we'll understand that we're seeing an angel. So they can show up to people in different ways, right? And if you're the kind of person who's got maybe a more elevated awareness of what angels are, they might communicate to you more telepathically or in more subtle like languages and ways that you'll notice, but they won't appear to you physically like with wings and stuff, because they'll know that you don't really need that to understand that they exist, if that makes sense. So I think that this is playing on that kind of an idea. So Jesus tricked everyone, for he did not appear as he was, but he appeared so that he could be seen. If Jesus, the realized Christ, like Christ isn't his last name, it's like a level of consciousness. And there are different levels of consciousness. The Buddha, I believe, made it to the level of Yasod. We've talked about the tree of life in our videos before, and we know that they are laid out in such a way that these governing forces, I don't think I want to get into all that. Well, hold on. Let me grab the little map. Beep. Props. We have our chart. Chart's coming out. Okay. So these are the different dimensions of consciousness. And this is the physical realm here, where we are made manifest in Malchut. One step up, so like the levels of consciousness, as far as like don't worry about these side ones. So this is where we are here at a base level of consciousness. If you go up one level, that is the level of Yasod, the foundation, and this is where like Buddha reached, and some of the other masters, like the Dalai Lama, these people at that level. I don't know if the Dalai Lama counts in there, but the Buddha would be considered like someone who had reached that level. The only human being that has lived in the state of Christ consciousness that I know about, I mean, I don't know about Enoch and like some of the like the Elijah and the people who ascended in the Old Testament. I'm not sure if they made it to Christ consciousness or if they were close, but they were definitely elevated in consciousness. But here in this level of Tiferet, this is the highest level of consciousness that people like in human carnation can ever reach, because as we go higher and higher, we shed all these layers of our personality and our ego. And so once you start getting past this level, it's like your identity as a soul starts to become like, it starts to go away, and you start to be kind of reabsorbed back into the all. So Christ, who was incarnated as Jesus of Nazareth, was in this state of consciousness on earth. But we can only perceive at our level unless we are elevated and we have an evolved consciousness and an expanded consciousness, and then we can start to understand, like even if we're not a prophet at this level of consciousness, like someone at this level of consciousness can start planting seeds that we can start realizing and understanding. And so we begin to meet them. They meet us at our level. So Jesus emanating this level of consciousness and energy, it was too much for any of us to take in. They talk, I remember hearing this or learning this earlier in school, but when Christopher Columbus showed up in the ships, I hope this isn't like a totally erroneous fact, or that's not a fact at all, but don't quote me on this. But I remember learning that there was an explorer, maybe it wasn't Christopher Columbus, that showed up to the Americas, in the earlier centuries, and the technology of a ship was so outside of the realm of understanding of the indigenous people that were basically in the, like on the shore, like seeing these, Europeans show up, that they couldn't even see the boats. Like the boats were invisible. They had no capacity to even see them because they were so like beyond their understanding and recognition. And they thought that like the Europeans had just like shown up and materialized like gods. And so that's kind of what this is like. That's why an angel has to appear to someone on the level of their understanding, or else they won't be visible. Same with Jesus. Jesus tricked everyone, for he did not appear as he was, but he appeared so that he could be seen. So he would have to meet people at their level. Meaning Jesus, like in a practical way, in a not mystical way, it presented as Jesus can work any room. Like Jesus can hang out with the rich people, he can hang out with the poor people, and he can use his parables to explain concepts to people. And even though he might use the same story or the same example, the different people are going to be able to interpret that on their level, the way that they understand it, the way it's going to apply to them, or at their level of understanding. Maybe some people can understand it understand deeper layers, But there's always, everything in the Bible has 4 interpretations. It starts at the surface, and then it keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper, the 4th level being the deepest wisdom, which is the mystical, metaphysical meaning behind all of the encoded terms. And the parables and things like that. There's always a reason that they're using the language and the wording that they do, because that word means something in Hebrew and it has a mathematical like value to it, and there's so many things involved in the layers of it. So that's why it's like a lot of things get lost in translation. So Jesus tricked everyone, for he did not appear as he was, but he appeared so that he could be seen. So he came across however he would be understood. The point to him was that the message, the seed would be planted, not that everybody has to get it right. Everybody's got to be a master at this. It's like, no, the point is that I want to give something to you, a seed that will be planted in fertile soil, right? I can't give a banana tree to someone who has the soil of North America, right? It won't grow. So he had to meet people at their level. And to shine in his whole full force of glory would be too much for us to take in. I think there's somewhere in the Old Testament, there's some line that goes to the effect of like talking about God, but it's like, no man has ever looked upon me and lived. And it's because it's just we're talking about the energy being filtered in this time of night, right? Because the energy is so pure, it's all encompassing. Think about the Big Bang, right? That cataclysmic explosion from a singularity that had the entire universe encompassed inside of one little dot. So that is the power that we are talking about. So it has to be shrouded in layers and layers and layers. We have layers and layers and layers shrouding that light inside of us, our spirit. We have a spark of that light within us. And it is encased inside of our soul, inside of layers and layers and layers and layers. And so as we, correct our negativity, we shed these layers. As we heal these wounds, we shed these layers and they reveal more light and we become more radiant. Well, if Jesus had showed up in his full radiance, no one could even be able to take him in. They wouldn't be able to understand anything he was saying. It would be too far out. I mean, people already could barely understand what he was talking about. And honestly, I mean, people have been trying to figure it out for thousands of years and they're still missing most of the point. So he's just kind of trying to meet everybody where they're at. Jesus tricked everyone, for he did not appear as he was, but he appeared so that he could be seen. He appeared to everyone. I like that they pointed out he appears to everyone. He appeared to everyone. Meaning the Christ consciousness is available to everyone, right? Knock and the door is open. Seek and ye shall find. Ask and it is given to you, right? Because this wisdom, this consciousness, this radiance, this glory, it dwells within us. It radiates from each and every one of the cells of our being. But it's up to us to train our mind, to master ourselves, to balance our vices into virtues so that we can open our consciousness and unblock our oversoul, unblock whatever is keeping us separate from connecting to that, so that we can tap into that wisdom, so that we can tap into that ultimate fulfillment, so that we can tap into that peace, that joy, that part that can actually transcend the illusion of death, right? Or transcend the illusion that the 3D is the most real, it's the most solid. He appears to everyone because everyone has a soul and a spirit, and they all have this map. This is the beautiful machinery of the universe. This is a macrocosm of the structure of reality, and it's a microcosm of the structure of the human soul. So this Christ consciousness here all of this brilliance, all of even these above our understanding, part of that is within us. It's just kind of dormant, or we're not like, it's not turned on, right? So the Christ consciousness is already here. It's already in its fullness, right? We just haven't been able to unlock the door with the keys, the right keys, to open it up fully. And we wouldn't want to, not all at once, because like we said before, when we have a download, when we receive the light, it's so strong and it has to be embodied, and we have to go through a process, right? And it's not often, super easy breezy process. It's usually challenging, right? Think about the hero going out on the hero's journey, or, an adolescent being initiated, right? Rites of passage. So, everyone has that access. Everyone has the ability to tap into it. Everyone has the ability to see Christ. It's just that you're only ever seeing him at the level that you're at that moment. But Christ, the energy, Christ, the Savior within, is always available, always there. Never, it's 24/7. Open daily. Let's see, appeared to everyone. And it makes me think that it's possible for anyone to have an awakening in every carnation, right? It's not only possible, but it's strongly urged. It's the assignment for everyone. So it's not like some people are blessed and others aren't, or some people get to be righteous while others don't. It's a choice, and it's a process, and it's not like it just happens or there's a shift and you're just like, suddenly I'm enlightened. It happens through being like, through sacrificing one's own will to the process and the discipline of Christ consciousness. It's about living your life in such a way that you generate a sense of ease and wellness and abundance and everlasting life and inner peace and fulfillment and joy and love. Your cup runneth over, because you're listening to the messages that Jesus, the person, was trying to tell us about how to live in a state of Christ consciousness. And so when people get really caught up about being like Beatlemania over Jesus, like everybody wear a Jesus t-shirt, blah, 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 you're missing the whole point, right? You're not going to live in peace. There's so many people that are beating their brains out going, I go to church every week. I don't understand. I pray. I do all the right things. I'm like the good, fresh out of the box, no assembly required Christian. Why don't I have this joy? Why don't I have these insights? And it's because it's not about showing up to church on Sunday morning and like doing your thing and having your little social hour and then calling it a day and going about your business. And it's not about living in fear, trying to live in color inside the lines because you're afraid you're going to be smouted down to hell and, shamed and guilted by and cast out of your village. The point is that we take on the yoke of learning how to master ourselves, how to be the master of our thoughts, how to cultivate a garden that can grow positive thoughts. And it's not just so that we have a pleasant experience. We are creator beings. We are here and our thoughts and our words and our energy, they are powerful. We are divine beings. We are creating things around us all the time. Most of the time we're creating chaos because no one is in the driver's seat. So to have Christ consciousness is to get into the driver's seat and take the fucking wheel. Jesus is my co-pilot. How about that? But yeah, so you really have to take on the discipline of Christ consciousness and learn about it and spend time in meditation. But it's about cultivating that inner peace, because you're not a slave to your fears. When people are like, when you get afraid and you get nervous and you're like, oh, I have a bad feeling about this, I need to do something about it. It's like the devil's just pulling the little strings and you're just jumping. Like, it's like, snap your fingers. How high can I jump? How high can I jump? Every time something scares you and you want to put out that fire to get rid of that that discomfort, you're a slave to your master fear. Every time you take an action based on an assumption of scarcity, there's your master right there. Every time you take an action or make a choice based on a fear that you are in lack or that you are inadequate, who are you serving? Not Christ consciousness. Because Christ consciousness tells us that we are the fullness of the light, and that there is nothing that we have to do, that we're already worthy, right? It's about receiving that love, that agape love, and letting it overflow, and believing in Jesus and what he taught about the Christ consciousness, and then taking that on and trying to allow that process to unfold in your life. It's also about like not being at the mercy of every one of your emotions. It's like, it's a balance, right? It's like you need to be able to understand that the surface waters will get choppy. They will change. Moods change. Emotions change. You should pay attention to what your pattern of emotions are telling you about your life and make adjustments where you need to. But your emotions can trick you if you're not wise and discerning also. So it's a process of self-mastery, but the focus shouldn't be on all of the superficial material things that people get so caught up in all the time. They're just wasting their energy. They're missing the whole point of everything. And they're not having as much fun as they could be having, I'm sure. He appeared to the great as great. He appeared to the small as small. He appeared to the angels as an angel, and to humans as human. And so again, the Christ is an energy, right? And it will appear to each in a different way to meet you in the moment that you're in, at the level that you are in, no matter what state of consciousness. Even to an animal, he meets the animal at the animal's level, right? Where does it say that? It said, he appeared to everyone. He appeared to great as great. He appeared to small as small. He appeared to the angels as an angel, and to humans as humans. Oh, maybe I was just thinking of angels. But as the angels, when he's working with those energies, he's just pure energy, right? Because pure energetic forces don't need to see like Jesus with the robe on, with the beard. They're like, we recognize you. You don't have to wear the flesh bag. You don't have to wear that cartoon outfit again. When he is appearing to great sages or righteous souls or prophets, he appears at a higher level because they are able to see him, to understand, to have the revelation, to do something with it, to have the insight, and to embody that. He appears to the small as small. So he can appear to a person of simple understanding, of surface level understanding, at the level that they can understand, right? But what it requires is a genuine desire and an earnest, open mind and heart, right? You have to be willing to give up what everyone has force-fed you, what everyone else has said, like, this is how I see it, and this is what it means, and blah, blah, blah. You have to put all that aside. Leave your father's house. Abraham left his father's house to have his own relationship with God. So same, right? We are having our, like, pushing all of the stuff that everybody else gave us, and you have your own relationship with Christ, because it's a process that you are undertaking yourself. You're carrying the cross through the 12 stages, right? No one else is. So when you start taking all that on and taking responsibility for your own insight, and you don't look for someone else to tell you everything, then all of a sudden you become your own woman. You become your own man. You become sovereign over yourself. And it's harder for people to try to have dominion over you or manipulate you or make you feel unworthy or wrong or shameful, because you have your own relationship and you will only let God judge you, because you start understanding things at such a level where, like, once the Christ has appeared to you at your level and you keep going up and up and up, it's like when people start throwing stones at you, then you look at them and you're like, oh, you don't even know what's going on. You feeling okay? You poor thing over there. So, yes, he appeared to the great as great. He appeared to the small as small. And he appeared to the angels as angels and to humans as human. For this reason, his word was hidden from everyone. So it's like, because we have to go through a process of earning, like in Kabbalah, we talk about the concept of bread of shame. And so the two basic components to reality are the light and the vessel. In the beginning, the light and the vessel were all one thing. It was all one unified being. But like God in the unmanifest was like, like, I want to share something with someone. So let there be light created a vessel. It literally opened up for a space for reality to be created into. And so where was our, for this reason, his word was hidden from everyone. Oh, the process. Okay. So the light was like, I want to share. And so the vessel was created for sharing. And so the light shared endless light into the vessel. And then the vessel was like, all this light, I haven't even done anything to earn this light. And now I'm getting bread of shame. This concept called bread of shame is when someone is like over giving to someone who hasn't earned it yet. And then it makes the person who's receiving almost resentful, or like it becomes like awkward. They're like, no, it's just too much. Like, it's awkward. Like, I haven't earned this. Like, you're over giving to me. You know what I mean? So it's like creates bread of shame, which also creates chaos. So in order to avoid bread of shame, Jesus appeared on the surface in a way to people, but in order to earn the light and avoid bread of shame, they had to go through a process of understanding. So Jesus's messages were never just straightforward, like, all right, well, here's the solution. You just need to drink more water. Because then people would be like, oh, yeah, that's cool. And then they'd like leave and they'd forget about it. But because he gave people parables and metaphors and poetic suggestions and things for them to mull over and chew on and think about, they were seeds planted in people that would stick, and it would grow them and change them. And the information, more would be revealed to them over time as their consciousness expanded, because there were so many layers buried within the coding, the poetry, the symbolism, the metaphysics. So even though he appeared to people on the surface in the physical, he's telling these stories, he's telling you these lessons, and on the surface it seems like, oh yeah, I get the moral of the story. Well, you might get the moral of the story, but there's so many deeper layers that will come out over time when you go from small to great. Jesus will first appear to you as small. You'll understand the surface of what he's talking about. As you become great, you'll understand the deeper hidden layers, and then you'll be like, wow, it's so amazing that so much can be in like one message. So many layers that seem like they're, it's amazing, but you're only able to see it when you elevate, when your consciousness expands, when you have that earned wisdom and you start that earned wisdom and discernment. Okay, so for this reason he was hidden from everyone. Some looked at him and thought they saw themselves. But when he appeared to his disciples in glory, before I move on to that. Some looked at him and thought they saw themselves. There's a little witch in all of us. Like, I just see, like, Diane Weiss saying, like, there's a little witch in all of us. Some looked at him and thought they saw themselves. Well, we all have the potential to reach Christ consciousness. And so when we see ourselves in someone, it's like we see our potential, even if we don't recognize it consciously. We see the affinity that we share with them. We see that we are like Christ. We are Christ-like. Or even in this case, they thought Christ was more like them than he was. Some looked at him and thought they saw themselves. Yeah, I think that it's definitely like he would mirror things to people, right? So that they could understand it. Like, he would mirror their energy. He would mirror their, like, level. But also, I think in that meeting them where they're at, it helped people be able to see, like, having a humble Jesus allowed, like, the humble people to see that they could be like him too, that they were included. And when the great people met Jesus, they saw themselves in him, and they felt like they had someone that they could connect with, that, like, they could stand toe-to-toe with these concepts, or at least they thought they could. You know, they saw the potential, and so it gave them hope. It gave them excitement, right? It gave them a feeling that they could change, that they could transform, that they could rise above their station, that they could elevate their consciousness, that they didn't have to be resigned to despair or fear or misery, that they could become like Christ. And it gave people an inspiration, right? A motivation, a purpose to follow suit, to follow in those footsteps. But when he appeared to his disciples in glory upon the mountain, he was not small. He became great. Or rather, he made the disciples great so they could see him in his greatness. And I think when it says he appeared to them on the mountain, he was not small, I'm not sure what this is a reference to. I'm assuming, because it says he appeared to them on the mountain, that this is a throwback reference to some of the other Gnostic Gospels where they're taking place like just after the crucifixion, and he was resurrected, but he was like in a non-physical form, and he kept coming back in a non-physical form and like continuing with like these deeper teachings with the disciples. Like, he went super deep. Like, the Gnostic Gospels are kind of based on, or many of them, or some of them, are based on conversations with Jesus that the disciples had after the crucifixion, when he was in like a liminal space before he like ascended beyond into the mysteries. He came back and was trying to give all of this like very cryptic, crazy, like far out there material, because he was coming back in his greatness, right? Like, I don't even have a body anymore. I don't have like the layers that have shielded my light from you. So it was like he was able to convey these concepts that were far beyond anything that anybody that he had ever like skimmed or been able to like go into with them at any other point before, or at least not very much. There were a couple of the disciples that he was talking to while he was alive about some of these secret teachings, but for the most part, it was mostly Mary Magdalene. Judas claimed that he had some of the inside scoops, so he like talked to a couple of them that had more of a deeper understanding of the material beyond the material surface level. It was like they could understand the metaphysics of it instead of getting caught up in the literal day-to-day, which some of the disciples we're very obsessed over just like the mundane, like surface level understanding, right? So when he came back and appeared to his disciples in glory upon the mountain, he was not small, meaning he was not held down to a human level anymore. He was fully divine at that point, radiating the fullness of the glory of all of the light made manifest, essentially. And so all of the wisdom and the truth was contained in him, and his light was just like emanating just through like the vibe, right? His vibe was so strong that it was like, do you remember that movie Powder, where Powder could just be like near the books and like he would absorb the information? Like Jesus is radiating all of this light at this point, that just being in his presence, you're like telepathically absorbing his truth, his radiance. And if you're not in affinity with that, it is going to burn you up like a little, like overloading a circuit in a generator. Have you ever like plugged way too many plugs into like an outlet or a cube tap, and then it like overloads, and so it starts smoking and causing a fire? Pure divine light energy coming through without any filters is gonna burn us up. It's all, it's all light, it's all electricity, right? So he was able to elevate the disciples. It's so funny because they were also up on a mountain elevating. These like coincidences are never coincidences. There's always these symbolic things playing out in the physical way that they're going about things that have to do with like the layers. It's really crazy. It's really wild how so many things can be going on at once. But when he appeared to his disciples in glory upon the mountain, he was not small. He became great. Or rather, he made the disciples great so they could see him in his greatness. So he had to elevate them and expand their consciousness so that they could see him, so that they could take him in and understand what he was saying, so that they would appreciate him. I mean, I don't know if you've ever talked to people who don't understand like the level of what you're talking about, but you do your best, but it's just like, it's almost like talking into a void or an empty room of people just like. So he wanted them to be able to at least have some inkling of understanding, enough that they could grasp on and let the seed be planted, and then it would grow and sprout over time and take on a life of its own. He had to elevate them so that they could see him, so that they could see him in his greatness. He wanted them to participate in like the glory and the intensity. Like, can you imagine being Jesus Christ and knowing who you are from the other side and coming into the world, knowing that you're going to be like a big deal? Like, this is going to be the hugest thing that happened in like 2,000 years, guys. And I want you to meet me on the mountain. I want you to be able to like experience the full glory. It's going to be awesome. No one is going to believe this shit. Like, it's going to be so gnarly. And I don't want you to miss it. It's like the once in a lifetime, like in all of history. So yeah, it's like you're so excited. Have you ever met someone that's like, feels like a kindred spirit, and it feels like they're on your level, and you're just so excited that you finally have someone to talk to, that you're not just talking at, and that the person is not just asking you what to tell them about what you know, but they also have like incredible insights that are blowing your mind too, and you're just like, oh. And it feels so good, and you feel so relieved that you finally feel like you're not invisible and that you're not completely like muzzled, because it's not that you haven't been making a noise. Like, your tree has been chopped down in the forest so many times, but every time you fall and make a noise, it's like no one's there to perceive it. No one's there to hear it, right? Even if they're physically there, they're not there. They're not there yet. They're not there on your level, and so they're not really able to like reciprocate in the same way. So that's why it's such a relief. It's so nice when you meet someone who can, right? And that's kind of what Jesus was getting at. He was like, I want to share this with someone, and you guys are like, you're the closest thing I've got to it. We've been working together. You're fairly familiar with the material so far. So I think they probably got maybe a spontaneous up level. Yeah, kids, I think that's it. I'm going to read this one more time straight through, give you something to think about. Jesus tricked everyone. Jesus tricked everyone, for he did not appear as he was, but he appeared so that he could be seen. He appeared to everyone. He appeared to the great as great. He appeared to the small as small. He appeared to the angels as an angel, and to humans as human. For this reason, his word was hidden from everyone. Some looked at him and thought they saw themselves. But when he appeared to his disciples in glory upon the mountain, he was not small. He became great, or rather, he made the disciples great, so they could see him in his greatness. And that is that. I hope you guys have a good rest of your evening. You're probably not up right now. I don't know, some people are. Some people are in Europe, and so you probably see me in the morning. Hello, Europe. Hello, all my people there. Thank you for joining me. Maybe I'll get big in the US too. I'm huge in Syria. No, not really. But I do have some people in Sweden and in Germany. Hello. Good to see you. All right, y'all. I'm going to take a scalding hot shower. Let me heat up some leftovers. And then I'm going to go to bed. Bye. Ciao.